Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching. I am your host, Joshua Okpara. This morning, I got a really spicy conversation I really want to talk to you about. For the next 13 to 15 minutes, I want to talk to you about servant leadership. Uh, First of all, the reason why this topic really came about was I received a text message that I thought was a scam. I was gifted with a free meal for the year, the whole year, by this amazing restaurant in Dallas called Bad Chicken. Um, BAD. You heard that right. Bad chicken. Now, of course, I don't imagine the chicken to be bad. And I was wondering where did this come from because this was a restaurant I never actually ate from before. And so, of course, like anybody else, I originally thought it was an actual scam. I was like, somebody has scammed me because it said, hey, you were nominated as being a hero in the community. And so I began to do my research. I reached out to my team and I said, hey, yo, I got this award, this free meal for the year, and I need you to kind of confirm it, what's going on. I even called the restaurant and I spoke to one of the managers and I said, "Hey, I got this text message from y'all. Is this real? What's going on?" And the manager said, "Yes, it's real. Your name is on the list and blah blah blah." And I'm wondering why was my name on this list? Um, Especially, I've never eaten at the restaurant. How did you even get my number? What's going on? Is this the new level, new age scam? What's happening here? And I reached out to my team. They finally responded. They said, "Hey, we actually recommended you. We recommended you for servant leadership because of the way you lead. We recommended you for what we saw this company was doing. They were willing to honor those who were heroes in the communities, those who were servant leaders in the community, and we put your name down. And they were so excited that they had won, and I was excited to add one, and I was excited that I can connect that the message I received was not a scam, but it had me thinking, what is this servant leader, and why was I recognized, and what is this concept of servant leadership, and better yet, why is servant leadership a thing? Is it a thing? Is it possible to be a servant and a leader? When I think about servant, I think about someone who by normal definition, is not really in a leadership position. I mean, whenever we think of servant, I mean, we think about slaves. I wouldn't necessarily think of a slave to be a leader based on how we define leadership. So then, why do we say servant leader? Nowadays, to be called a servant leader would be something that any CEO, any boss, anyone in a leadership authority or position would want to be called. And they use this to symbolize one who cares for the people, one who is for the people rather than just being for power and authority. But is that really the case? And so I want us to kind of have a deep conversation. Again, I have my trusty phone here. I got some notes I want to share with you. And I want us to really talk a little bit for the next 10 minutes about servant leadership. Servant leadership. Now, here's what I saw about the definition of servant leadership that I thought was pretty cool. It says leadership that prioritizes the growth, well being, and empowerment of others. I thought that was pretty pretty dope right there. Let me read it again. It says leadership, a servant leadership, is the type of leadership that prioritizes the growth, the well-being, and the empowerment of other people. I love that definition so much because typically when I think of one person being a leader, what I would naturally think about is the leader may not necessarily be self-serving, but as a leader, something about you should speak power and boldness. There should be something about you that says, you know what, I got a purpose to serve, I got something to do, I have to look and feel like a leader. But in the definition of servant leadership, you is not mentioned. The individual who is the leader is not mentioned. As a matter of fact, everything about the definition of servant leadership points to others, points to another person. So we see this contrast there with traditional leadership and servant leadership. You see, traditional leadership points to power. A traditional leader is seen as a leader because they have the power. Everything points to them. Everything is focused on them. Everything is centered on them. They are in authority and they're in position of authority because people are serving them. People are bowing down to them. Whatever they say goes. And many times, this is the mindset that shapes our thoughts of leadership. Many times we see leadership through that lens, that traditional lens, that you are a leader because you have power. Everything points to you. But we see this concept of servant leadership from the perspective of you're a leader because you serve. You're a leader because everything you do is focused on others, not everything others do being focused on you. I thought that was pretty interesting. And so I want to share with you some core characteristics of servant leadership. Just few. I want to give you like three of them. Number one, a servant leader is empathetic. Number one, a servant leader is empathetic. Number two, a servant leader is great at listening. You see, you cannot call yourself a leader or a servant leader, should I say, if listening is not a core strength of yours. Because for you to be able to serve the people, you must know what they want. I think about a waiter coming to our table, and if the waiter comes to my table and I'm like, hey, I would like to have this and that, and the waiter goes la 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 la, well, that waiter would get a really bad tip, or I would walk out of that restaurant because what makes that waiter to be a professional, what makes that waiter to get a good tip, and what shows the way that waiter can serve me effectively is the ability to listen to my order, to comprehend what I'm saying, and to produce exactly what I want. That's what servant leadership looks like. Can you listen? Another aspect and core characteristics of a servant leader is they have good stewardship, foresight, and they are focused on community building. They have good stewardship, foresight, and are focused on community building. Now, one of the things about servant leadership that we must understand, you cannot be a servant leader without having a role model to look up to. As believers, there is one leader that we look up to, that we love, the greatest leader of all time, Jesus. There's no other leader like him. He started an organization that's still going. Thousands of years have passed, and that organization is still going. He is the greatest CEO. He keeps recruiting people, and if I could be honest, the book that his company sells, called the Bible, is still the number one selling book in the whole wide world. And this leader, Jesus, the Bible records for us the type of leadership that he has. The Bible says, for the Son of Man, for Jesus Christ, he came to serve and not to be served. You may say, Josh, what does that mean? In other words, this servant leader, Jesus Christ, what he modeled for us was he came, and the very team that he has, normally whenever we have a team and you are a traditional leader, your team should be serving you. Your team should be serving your purpose. Your team should be serving your cause. But this Jesus comes in, and what he does is he says, I'm going to wash your feet. You have to understand that in the time of Jesus, there were not really J's, as we would like to call it. There were no sneakers, as we would like to call it. And so that sand, that terrain, imagine walking all day and all night. Imagine the people walking around, and imagine the different substance and elements and compounds and all the different chemicals or the different mud and dust and things in the environment that is on the feet of an individual. And Jesus says, I'm willing to get my hand dirty, not to do things that are illegal, but I'm willing to get my hand dirty to wash one of the grossest parts of your body, because that's the way I'm going to show you that I came here to serve. That I'm willing to get my hand dirty for your benefit. I'm willing to get my hand dirty. I'm willing to get my feet rusty on the floor for your benefit. I'm going to show you that the way I lead you is by serving you, even to the part where it could feel discomfortable to me. That is the motto of servant leadership. And so the question has to be, everyone who we have seen that are great leaders of our time, were they great because of how people served them? Or were they great because of how they served others? Think about the Mother Teresa. Think about the Martin Luther Kings. Were they great because of how others served them? Or were they great because of how they served others? You see, servant leadership is rooted in motive. Servant leadership is rooted in motive. There are two major motives of every leader. Two major motives. Number one is the motive of I want power. I want money. I want authority. I want recognition. I want influence. Many times that is the inherent goal of any individual. And many companies are structured that way. And unfortunately, we have created a generation that glorifies servant leadership while not recognizing that servant leadership should be the norm. Because we have created a generation of people who believe that, hey, leadership is a reward. You see, when you see leadership through the lens of a traditional way, you see leadership as a reward for doing X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and now I became a leader because I was rewarded for my work that I did. That's a self-serving mentality that, hey, why do you want to be a leader? I don't feel like I'm a leader yet because I need to work hard and hard and hard. And then they're going to reward me to be a leader because of how hard I work. And so many people are aspiring to be leaders with the wrong motive because they see leadership as a reward. They see leadership that you attain after you have worked hard enough. They see leadership as something that you obtain after you have gained enough influence, enough control, enough power, enough money. And so they strive for leadership. And this is the thing, they could be serving a community, but their motive behind serving is I want to be rewarded the gift of being a leader. And the problem with that, ladies and gentlemen, is leadership is not a reward. You see, the other motive for leadership is simply to serve. If I could be honest with you, as much as I love the concept of servant leadership, I truly despise it because a servant leader should not exist because leaders are supposed to be servants. I don't have to segregate you and call you a servant leader because you are serving, because what makes you a leader is you are serving at a higher capacity. Jesus, the greatest leader of all time, was called a leader because he served. You see, when you view leadership as a reward, you create a company culture in your workplace or even in yourself to see things through the lens of I deserve this. It's a self-serving mindset. It's about what you want. It's about what you should have gotten. But when you see leadership as true suffering, selflessness, then you realize there's no reward for leadership. And by reward, I mean there's nothing about your great leadership that should point back to you. You see, Jesus did not come to die for himself. Dying did not benefit Jesus. He was bruised, thorns on his head. The scripture said he was beaten to the point that he was unrecognizable. And he that knew no sin became sin so that we could become the righteousness of God. That true leadership is serving to the point where you no longer matter. That is the people that matters. That I would serve to the capacity that everything I do points to the benefit of others. And the reward of that is influence. Money can come, power can come, but the key difference is the motive is not the same. There are people in power right now with the wrong motive, and we are seeing the reward and the results of their leadership. What is your motive? If you're aspiring to be a servant leader or to be a leader in general, the only identity a leader has is to serve. Serve your community. Serve a need that is greater than yours. Serve a people that's greater than you. Every time you may think of a need for yourself, there is always a greater need. Even if you may not have the money, you may not have the influence, there is a greater need than yours. If you don't have the money, there's somebody who may not have a car and you have a car. There's somebody who may not have clothes and you have extra shoes and extra pants and extra shirts. Always look to serve the greater need. That is how you become a great leader. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.